webinar, Preventing Teacher Burnout, School Choice Offers a Way. We're so glad you're with us this afternoon, and we're sorry for a slightly late start. We had a little technical blip, but we're good to go now. My name is Tressa Pankovitz. I lead the Reinventing Schools, America's Schools project at PPI, along with my co-director, Curtis Valentine. Our mission in that work is to advocate for greater equity, inclusion, higher quality schools, and school choice for students and families who could be marginalized in traditional school systems. We do that work by researching, writing, and speaking about school models that center on autonomy, accountability, and diversity of design. The purpose of today's webinar is threefold. First, as I mentioned, we're celebrating School Choice Week. And secondly, we are going to use this to amplify and introduce one of the newest models of school choice. And finally, but not least, we are going to lift up educators' voices and learn from some of them who are teaching and leading in that new model. So as we go forward today, I'd like to invite you to pose questions to us in the chat function. We are more than happy to answer them and dialogue with you. We want this to be a conversation and inclusive. And now I'm going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves. Ladies go first, so we're going to start with Lydia. Lydia, give us your full name and tell us what you do and where you do it.
Hello, my name is Lydia Mercedes Vidal Sandate. It's a long name, but everyone at school calls me Maestra Lydia. I am the middle school Spanish teacher. I'm also an instructional coach, and I serve children at Global Prep Academy in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And you are obviously coming to us from your classroom today.
Yes, my safe space, my happy place.
That's awesome. So glad to see you there. My next educator, Greg Sparks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Sparks. I teach at KIPP Indy Legacy High School in Indianapolis. I am a Spanish teacher as well as faculty student council advisor.
Thank you so much. And we're excited to hear more from you today, Greg. We also have a school leader with us today, Nathan Tuttle. Nathan, tell us where you are an administrator and a little bit about your school.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Nathan Tuttle. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of Edison School of the Arts, formerly the principal of Edison School of the Arts. And we are a K-8 performing arts and arts integration school here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We have about 600 students. And yeah, it's just located right downtown Indianapolis.
Fantastic. Next up is Patrick Jones II. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Tress, how you doing? I'm Patrick Henry Jones II. We're going to put the whole thing out there. The Vice President of Leadership and Equity at the Mind Trust. And I have the pleasure of working with these individuals, fine schools in regards to equity, but also focused on leadership and leadership development at the Mind Trust.
Fantastic. Can't wait to hear more about your work. And finally, today we have a very, very special guest with us, Andrew Campanella, who is the president of National School Choice Week. And Andrew, I wanted you to be super comfortable here today. So look what I got.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I love it.
Choice mug. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I'm Andrew Campanella, president of National School Choice Week. Been doing this now for 12 years. And before that, I worked in teacher recruitment with some of America's largest public school districts, originally from New Jersey, but now I live in Miami, Florida.
Lucky you. I bet it's warmer there than where most of us are.
It's
So
nice here.
tell us about the significance of National School Choice Week and the goal.
So National School Choice Week is a time for parents all across the country to research and look into all of the different education options available for their kids. And what we do, our team does on a year-round basis, is we research, develop, and promote the nation's largest online portfolio of jargon-free and cost-free school search resources for moms and dads out there. And so we talk equally about traditional public schools, public charter schools, public magnet schools, online public schools, non-public schools, and homeschooling. And we are unbiased, and we shine an equal spotlight on all of those options. And during School Choice Week, we work with 26,000 schools and organizations to raise awareness of all the options out there in their communities so that they can get the attention they deserve. The highest percentage of schools that work with us are district schools, followed by charter schools and private schools. And we're proud to partner with some of America's largest public school districts.
Fantastic. Coming off these last few super challenging years for families and parents and remote learning and all that's gone with that, are you seeing an increased interest in school choice at this time?
Absolutely. We did a survey at the very beginning of January, and it showed that 52% of parents of school-age kids between the ages of 5 and 18 said that last year they looked around for a new or different school for at least one of the kids in their household. And over the last 24 months, 1 in 6 kids has switched schools. We also found that among the families who didn't look around at a different school, 18% of those said they would start that process in advance of the 2022-2023 school year. What I find most interesting about this is not just that there is so much choosing and interest in choice going on, but families are very interested in their public sector school choice options.
That's right. And if you have not seen the National School Choice Week organization's kickoff video, you really want to go to their website or YouTube and find it. They do a 50-state roll call with students from every state in the country, and it is absolutely adorable, inspiring, uplifting, and it's really great to see the faces of those students who are benefiting from school choice. Andrew, we're going to come back to you with more, but I want to tell you why we're doing this video today. While Andrew's organization is agnostic as to the school model, which is great, we here have been exploring a new model that is gaining a lot of traction in Indianapolis. So all the educators who are with us today are from Indianapolis, but the model by no means is restricted to Indianapolis. They're doing similar models of this in Texas and in Colorado, and in New Jersey. So it is a newer model, and we wanted to amplify that because we think it's one that makes a lot of sense. In Indianapolis, these are called innovation schools. And basically, it's where the district partners with an external nonprofit to run the day-to-day operations of the school. They're in charge of budgeting. The school is in charge of budgeting, staffing, and curriculum. But it remains under the district's umbrella so that when the school's scores improve, which we're going to hear more about, it increases the district's growth as well. So last year, our founder at Reinventing America's Schools, David Osborne, and I authored a whole guide on this model, including model legislation. But of course, it didn't get as much amplification as we probably would have liked because of the pandemic and so many other pressing issues. So I was kind of racking my brain as to how we could sort of relaunch it and bring more attention to what I think is an important school model. And I struck on teachers. The title of this webinar is Preventing Teacher Burnout and School Choice Offering Away. And we think it's when teachers have choices, they can find a place to work that sort of matches their vision for themselves as an educator. I work at a think tank. I would be in a terrible situation if there was only one kind of think tank, probably would be disqualified altogether. But we're going to let you hear from the teachers in their own words. This video is a little long by TikTok standards, but we wanted to let all the teachers have their voices fully heard. So it's a little over 6 minutes, so bear with us. And Tommy, I'm going to have you go ahead and roll the compilation video.
It has become so personal. It's more than just teaching now. It is, these are my kids, these are my babies, so.
I'm here because the high expectations. To me, that's inspiring.
It might also be things like the ability to hire a teacher that wouldn't otherwise be able to be hired in a more traditional setting.
My hair is green, I have a lot of tattoos, I have a lot of piercings, and the school was totally comfortable with that, just like very much like, hey, it's you, it's your classroom, and I felt very appreciated.
Then I read on the internet that Global Prep had opened and they were looking for teachers. And when I opened up, I looked at the mission and then I read the word love. And that made me stop scrolling my screen.
They asked me if I would try the elementary school for a year. And so, you know, one of my mottos is you can do anything for a year. So I tried it out, absolutely adored my fourth graders.
We have a farm in the background, as you can see. We have a planetarium in the building.
We are a dual language school and we have the Spanish immersion program for free. So the fact that kids who again struggle with many other socioeconomic things have the opportunity to learn a second language from pre-K, that is a game changer.
The state passed a law that designated districts the opportunity to start autonomous schools. And the legal name for those autonomous schools is called an innovation school. Because you can do this without getting a charter, you can do this without setting up a charter authorizing office. It's the district saying that that school, if 50% or more of the staff wants it to become an autonomous school, the leader can then move that school into an autonomous space.
I think we have educators who are not afraid to take that leap, who are not afraid to create the change that they want to see in the world. And I think that's what sets us apart, especially like my executive director being in traditional schools. She knew that there's something missing and she took that leap of faith to create her own school, and we're here today.
I think the reason why the innovation schools are working here is that we finally are providing students and their families with schools that meet what they are desiring for their students. And we're being more transparent and allowing the community to share their vision for the school.
If you want the neighborhood to have some huge skin in the game on that school, one option is to essentially turn the school over to the neighborhood. So we see that a couple times in Indianapolis where the school is literally like run by a board of directors that encompass neighborhood leaders. And it's really a neighborhood school. Kids from the neighborhood go to the school, they have an executive director who's bought into the school, and the school is just full of joy.
And I think being able to root ourselves in an IPS building, like in our community, lets us like show that this is not just like a charter school that has come in here, but it is something that belongs to you, the community member, as well. Like as an innovation school, IPS is one of our biggest like allies, like being able to use their resources as we are in an IPS building and we use their transportation. So I appreciate the partnership a lot. I think it really allows us to offer the most to our students.
Just to give some context about state testing in Indiana, math test scores, third graders score the highest, and as they matriculate throughout their middle school career as students, that proficiency goes down, and typically our students here, the math goes up. My students historically have always outperformed state averages when it comes to math proficiency 6th, 7th, 8th grade for the past 7-8 years.
I think like what makes it all worth it, because it was a lot of work, is taking my students who maybe at the beginning of the year were 10th graders reading at a 3rd, 4th grade level and saying like look, this is where you are now. If you're able to grow 3 years in 1 year, like think about where you're going to be at next year.
That first quarter in English and math, we had 0% in proficiency. By December, I had 3 students meeting and then a bunch of kids approaching. So for me, that was like, I don't know, I don't think I have felt this successful in years.
The beauty of an innovation school is the contracts allow you to hold people accountable. And that's on both sides. We see improved scores, we see improved proficiency, and we see those schools generally doing better than the direct district-run schools. But we also see this love of school that didn't exist before.
As a world language teacher myself, coming into the classroom, I was given the keys completely. It's like, you do what you want for your students. Make sure it's rigorous, make sure they're learning, but we believe in you.
One push I would have is for more people to come and see Indianapolis and see what's taking place and actually talk to the kids and talk to the families about why they chose innovation.
Come to our school, come see us, come check us out, and hear firsthand from our staff, from the teachers on the work that we're doing.
This innovation partnership is fantastic. And if you're already coming back from a big change of like having so many students not in your building, it's the perfect opportunity to try something else.
If parents could take the time to see things in perspective, they would have a better understanding of why innovation schools are so important for America.
What a bunch of rock stars. It almost makes me tear up. It was such a great experience meeting them. Greg, I'm going to come to you first. What is your reaction to that video now that you see it all put together?
I was ecstatic to see how all that came together. Like one of my coworkers, Brianna Leeper, like I'm actually in her room this year. It like the emotional reaction from you is like almost reciprocated, and just like complete excitement from me, but also like hearing the messages just like really speaks to the beauty of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it was, I get emotional every time I see it. You guys are so amazing. I want to play one more clip from Greg. This one is very short and there's no music, but Tommy, if you could roll that, we're going to talk about the importance of alignment to mission.
As a teacher, as an individual, you decide, how does the school's mission, vision, strategy, tactics, how does that align with where I'm going as a professional? And if those things align and you know that's where your administrators want to go, then it's a match.
So talk to us about the importance of making that match for the teacher.
Yeah, I think
its impact therefore on students.
Yeah, I think like that's central, especially as we're looking to move forward from our past 2 years of learning. You hear a lot about like deficit mindset, like learning loss and things like that. Like our kids have assets, and like it's important that our leaders see that as well, and that we use those assets to continue to innovate and recreate like what's being done in education. You hear a lot of things going around about as far as like well, specifically here in Indiana, SEL and like challenging those things. Well, if your school and your community is together on what is important and what needs to be developed in like our young leaders, then as an educator, that's motivating. And so when I talk about like when that mission and vision align, just as there's choice for students, there's choice for teachers and where they teach and how they complete their own personal journeys and like realize that through their students in their classrooms.
That's terrific. And we're going to come back to you for more, but I want to hear Lydia's reaction to the video because you were a really big part of that production.
Thank you. I was very touched when I saw the video, and it came out like a perfect time for me. I was at bed rest for a week and that was emotionally draining. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, here's my why. And it's not that I had forgotten it, but it was easy to lose sight of it for a moment. Just like being there, we all hope that this school year was going to be 100 times better. And if for some reason it seems more challenging than last school year, But then what keeps me going is to see my students. I see them growing right in front of me. And I think I start glowing every time that I hear them using academic language or using a strategy that we recently taught, or when I see them so excited to come to school. And especially because, again, I'm teaching them for many of these kids, Spanish is not their first language. So for me to hear them analyzing figurative language and all this is like, wow, these kids are rock stars. We also receive like messages from grateful parents. I think we have this sense of community that really keeps you moving forward even when things get rough.
And I think your love for your students is really evident. I have one more clip that I want to talk about that talks about how challenged some of your kids are.
All right.
Most of the kids receive free lunches and they need a lot of support, uniforms, school supplies, you name it, plus a trauma. Yeah, that always hits me. My students face realities that, sorry, we have everything from kids who lost siblings to relatives for immigration situations. So there's a lot on my students' plates, and I know that not everybody faces that. So that's something that my students have to go through. So for me, the fact that they show up to school, it's already like they're already champions.
I just thought that was so beautiful. So how is your particular teaching situation in the innovation school keeping you going?
So again, that sense of community, I think this is something that we're building together. Sorry, I get emotional. We're in our 6th school year and it has not been easy, but we have a lot of teachers that have been here since day one. And we all keep pushing, like to make it greater and bigger. And again, just to see the growth in the students. Just today, I tested one of my 7th graders. He started with us, he was in 2nd grade, and year after year in Spanish, he was like red, not there yet. Last year when he finished the school year, he was approaching. It was like, oh, I see, you get this. Today he jumped to green. He's proficient. So I'm like, yes, regardless of everything that he has to go through, he shows up with the best attitude that he can. And he also has learned how to cope with those challenges. So like our work just goes beyond the academics because we have that, again, that sense of community. I have an amazing team, like I mentioned, and our school leaders are just striving to show us appreciation and encouragement in any shape or form they can imagine.
Well, I'm glad to hear that seeing this video several months after we shot it helped you remember your why, but I don't believe you ever forgot it. I just absolutely don't. I want to switch to Nathan now as a school leader. Do you think your teachers would describe similar motivations, and are your motivations similar? I think you're muted, Nathan.
I was practicing, just kidding.
That's okay.
No, thank you. I believe our motivations are definitely similar. Our demographics reflect the demographics of literally the city of Indianapolis. And we also use the TNTP article, The Opportunity Myth, to really guide a lot of our motivation as far as students need at grade level material. They deserve that, and it's our job to present that, and we don't water down our curriculum. We believe they need the best education. And so I would say that an education that involves at grade level rigor. And I would believe that is our we want to win the video game. We want to make it to the top and get our kids over the top and get them competing in the state and above state average. And so, we are constantly motivated by our data. We have every child from the superintendent of IPS, her children go here, all the way to the other situations that other people have described, and we educate them all. And we're super excited about that.
How important is it to you as a school leader to have control over your staffing?
That is a game changer, especially in pandemia. We are able to hire an assistant within 24 to 48 hours. We are able to pay more. And with current salaries at Noble Romans being $15 to $20 an hour, we can hire an assistant for much more than that. And so we can make sure we have assistants, permanent subs, as teachers are being out for COVID symptoms, so on and so forth. We're not missing school, and we are able to staff our classrooms with staff who are delivering curricular and at grade level material. So staffing is huge. We are so nimble as an innovation school.
And how is your school working to keep your staff from burning out?
Well, we just had Kona ice here today with hot chocolate. So we try to do just different treats, but also different motivational things. We have Starbucks drawings during staff meetings. We have shout outs every week at staff meetings where staff give each other positives. I, as a leader, convey positivity. And my job is, regardless of how much sleep I've had or what's going on with kids or in the building, I should be excited to be here. And I am here every day. My other leader is out sick, so I am subbing.
You had mentioned to me something about setting expectations right up front.
Expectations, upon hiring teachers at Edison, we talk about this experience being difficult. And it's not about our kids being difficult. It is about, we challenge teachers to be the best teachers they can be with our lesson plan internalization protocols and the delivery of a solid curriculum and delivering grade level material within a time slot using timers. And so we ask a lot of our staff. And so, but we also try to eliminate barriers. And we have a huge coaching support system within, where we have a 1-to-14 ratio. So 1 coach to 14 teachers or less. And teachers are observed and given feedback 1 to 5 times a week, depending.
I think setting those expectations in the beginning is probably the key.
Oh yeah, some people turn down the job because we're like, this is one of the most difficult, but also one of the most rewarding jobs you will have. We ask a lot of you, and so some people are like, this isn't for me. I could go somewhere that's easier. Yeah.
Patrick, I'm so sorry it's taken us so deep into the program to get to you, because the Mind Trust plays such a pivotal role. Talk about what the Mind Trust does and why having an organization like yours in the district can be a game changer for other districts that might be interested in this kind of a model.
Absolutely. I see how you're doing, me, Tressa. That's okay. Yes. Now, the Mind Trust is an organization that supports autonomous schools in our city. That's our core mission, to make sure that we increase proficiency for students in our city, because we know when a child learns how to read, when a child learns how to do math at the levels where you will be considered college or career ready, we know that's a life-changing experience for them and their family, and we want every child to experience that. And so one of the ways we do that is through our Innovation School Fellowship. And our Innovation School Fellowship is just that. It's a fellowship where school leaders go through to build and design what we're hoping to be award-winning schools that kids will have access to and their families. And so that's one of the ways that we support the education ecosystem in our community. Another way is we support or provide school supports, academic supports to schools, cultural supports to schools, and in some sense, financial and operations support to schools as well. And so Nathan's team, I think almost every member of his leadership team has been through the Relay National Principals Academy Fellowship. And so they've kind of learned some academic systems for which to run their school, to ensure that they have the observation feedback piece intact, that they have lesson plan preparation piece intact, intellectual preparation intact. So we also provide those school supports. And all around, we just serve as like an ecosystem connector to the organizations who work with us. So I'm very familiar with Global Preparatory Academy and KIPP Legacy. Actually, I was just at KIPP Legacy last night and had a bunch of food, and we fed the wrestling team. So it was it's just a great opportunity to be aligned and in partnership with all of our schools, because they work so hard for our children. And it's our job, we see it, to not only help them launch, but support them in their journey.
I'm sorry about that. And while you're incubating the school leaders during these fellowships, what do you do to make sure that they are equipped to make good staffing decisions and to uphold the accountability piece?
Yeah, we believe, and here's the deal. We have to also understand that to do that, that is extremely hard, right? For any organization, any industry. But we believe the keys to that are knowing who you are as a leader, exactly who you are, how you show up, how you walk into a room, like Nathan was talking about. Like when he walks into a room, it is his responsibility to be the person to turn the tide, to make his own weather. So who you are as an individual and as a leader, and how you show up. I think another thing that's really important is knowing and understanding what your organization is and who it is. What's its life? How is that organization living? Because then that will help you understand and decide what type of individual is going to work in this space. What type of individual will thrive in this space? And once you can get clear on those three things, the leader, the organization, and then the individual who will be a part of that organization, then we can start putting out feelers for the people that we believe can work there. And when we heard Greg speak earlier, he said, hey, I kind of looked at my values, I looked at the organization's values, and when they were aligned, that's something that I want to be a part of. And that's how it should be, right? An organization is only as good as the people who work there, but the people that work there are aligned on a common mission. And when we think about that mission, that has to be focused on what you believe about kids, what you believe about instruction, what you believe about how colleagues should be treated. When we get those things aligned, and how we operate in that space, then we can start moving on to what type of person really aligns to the way we work here.
And that alignment to mission is something that I hear everywhere I go. I'm working on a new study coming out shortly on some similar types of schools in Texas. And the Texas version of the Mind Trust, if you will, said the same thing, is that, you can charter, but what are you chartering? What is your mission? Are your teachers aligned with your mission? Is everything you're doing in that school, from the budgeting to the calendar, is it aligned to mission? And Andrew, you have the most national view of this of any of us. And while we're talking today specifically about innovation schools, of course, we have curiosity about charter and private and magnet. What do you see as far as teachers in school choice? Do you think there could be a greater alignment? Do you see more emphasis on aligning teachers to teach in the type of school that's going to meet their vision for what they see of themselves as an educator? Do you see less burnout? Give us the overview.
I mean, I just want to refer everybody back to that awesome video that you guys did, because when you see teachers who are happy in their classrooms and they describe being there as joyful and that they love it there, that's what we should want for every teacher. My mom is a teacher, teaches in a traditional public school. I come from a family of educators and they love what they do. And I want every teacher to feel that way, and no teacher to feel that their desire to educate and impart knowledge on kids is stifled or stymied by a school that just doesn't meet their needs. Just like I don't want any kid to feel that way either, because I don't want any kid to be in a class or in a school where he or she doesn't feel comfortable or accepted and encouraged to learn in an environment that is right for that child. So I think we just need to treat people as human beings. And instead of debating the politics over education and worrying so much about some of the in the weeds policy details, recognize, reflect on, and embrace the humanity in people that we know and also people that we don't know well enough, because we need to make sure that everybody is on an equal playing field when it comes to getting an education and having the opportunity to work in education. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I will say that I think that when you have more schooling options in a community and you have a lot of different environments, teachers can find a better fit for them and their interests. And also teachers have the ability to innovate and create a school if they want to. And I always like to say that behind every charter school, and apparently behind every innovation school from what I'm learning now, and every magnet school is an educator, is a teacher who wanted to start something new.
That's right. And speaking of educators, let's go back to our educators. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead here and stay with this theme of politics. Not that I want to talk politics, but we've seen a lot of chaos around school board meetings. We've seen a lot of anxiety because of the pandemic. Some parents have been very unhappy about what they've seen coming through the laptop or the desktop of their kids. And someone was concerned to me, said they were concerned that people might think that teachers in innovation schools, because they have so much more autonomy, might just be absolutely freelancing and doing their own things. So Tommy, if you would roll Greg's clip, and then we're going to talk to Greg about that.
We need to make sure that the people that are in charge of making these decisions about our innovation schools, whatever, like, come in and see, knock on the door. You have questions about like what I'm doing for student council and if it's rigorous or standards based, come in and see, like, talk to the students. They ain't gonna lie to you. They will not lie to you. I promise you.
So we were talking about all those months ago, Greg, how you had developed student council into a class. But for people out there that might hear of the autonomies that are available to teachers in these innovation schools, could you clarify? I mean, are you just freelancing, or are there some guidance?
Freelancing? Never. I'm like, more than, I feel like, I will say the thing is about our innovation schools is like we're very accountable to the community, and like parents and our community stakeholders have access to like walk through our doors and like come in and see. And so what I was speaking to there was also an experience I had at a prior school, is like decisions were being made, you know, we talk a little bit about like the political decisions, the stuff in the weeds. And I'm just like, yo, y'all like gotta come in and just like talk to these students, and instead of just like making these decisions, sometimes seeming flippantly. And like, I have had the experience of having student council be a class that's completely aligned to like a curriculum and standards that are set out as far as citizenship and civics. And we use that to transform what goes on in the building. And so it's kind of like the application of some of those things that are being pinpointed as like descriptor for the class. We could use that to like transform the community in and out of the school. And even now, like, I have student council as an after school experience, but I see that going on as well. And I think that it just provides a more comprehensive model. And with innovation schools, because you are so accountable within terms of like your performance and the community being so much closer to you, you can't just sit out there and just do whatever you want. You're definitely more accountable and the eyes are on you.
I thought that was an important point to make, just in the context of what we've seen with parents' concerns and just all of that just because teachers are given autonomy, it doesn't mean that there isn't some real strong guidance. And like you said, right back to the community that is using the school. I'm going to switch over to Lydia for a minute. Lydia, in the video, when you were talking about students approaching and then meeting proficiency, you said you didn't feel, you felt more successful than you had in years. I'm going to roll a clip about you talking, a clip of you talking about your experience with test scores at the school you were at previously, when those scores just wouldn't budge.
Like the data, again, it's really important, and now I see it from a different perspective, but perhaps the way that it was presented to me, it was really difficult to just feel like the student, if the students were not achieving, it was a reflection entirely of my teaching. And so for me, that was suffocating because I felt like I was doing so much. I put so many extra hours and I didn't see the results. And when I didn't see the results, that was frustrating on me.
So why is the Innovation School experience so different for you as a teacher?
My experience with data at an innovation school is completely different because I am not alone trying to disaggregate and interpret test results. Instead, I have my instructional coach, but we also have our data and testing coordinator, and she guides us through the process. In the past, I felt like I was alone with a burden of confusion and even like feeling guilty, you know, like about why these results don't show, you know, everything that you're doing. So now I have like clear guidelines. I have ideas that really connect to the classroom and I can see the results. When I first came here, I heard work smarter, not harder. And for the first month, like, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying. Like, no, but now I see it. Like now I see how there are little shortcuts that I can take and the kids are improving without me working so many hours I was doing in the past. And if I could give an advice to teachers that are feeling overwhelmed, may I?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. If you are feeling overwhelmed by data, it's a good idea that you talk to your administrators about it. Personally, for me, is having a visual display of the results that helps me to put like a name and a history and a face to those numbers. So I know that numbers are supposed to be, you know, like whole and stuff, but in education, you have to know your kids. Like it's not just about a number. So you can clearly see, okay, this is, you know, like this student and you know the history behind. Also start celebrating the little growth. Even if there's no like a huge growth, maybe it's not just in your department, well, make sure that you know your student as a whole. And maybe there was not a lot of growing in Spanish this quarter, but hey, that boy grew a lot of math. So just like keeping that positive message and, you know, in the next cycle, it might look totally different. So praise your kids and, you know, like learn that some factors you don't have control over some factors, but those that you can influence, just go ahead and make an impact there.
Okay, I owe Nathan and Patrick the next questions, but I have one more video I want to show you today. It's not as long as the other one, I promise. In fact, it's a little under half as long. No one has seen this, not even my Reinventing America's Schools colleagues yet. This is Keith Thomas, who you met in the compilation video, talking about data. And it just seems like the perfect time to segue to this video because we've been talking about data. And he also talks about how teaching in an innovation school is impacting his career trajectory. Tommy, could you roll Keith's video?
Things about the job is hearing students that leave, come back from high school and say, when I got to my algebra class, I was ready. There's nothing going to come in the way of my students learning. I'm not going to allow any student or anybody to negatively impact student learning in my classroom.
The state passed a law that designated districts the opportunity to start autonomous schools. And the legal name for those autonomous schools is called an innovation school.
My main thing is just to have high expectations and hold my students accountable no matter what. Once the students see that I care for and respect them, then they reciprocate that, and then that sets the foundation for success in the classroom.
So the district is saying, wait a minute, if we give this leader this autonomy, if this leader has the skill and will to be able to move this school, this might be worth it to us.
The no excuses mindset that starts from the top and bleeds down through the classrooms. All the teachers and staff are online and making sure that we're doing our job of providing our students the best possible education they can.
This is my room. It's where all the magic happens.
Teachers that select to go into innovation schools or schools with autonomy really are deeply committed to the mission and vision of the work, which might feel different than what they would have seen in a traditional district school. And they see this as an opportunity to grow and be mentors or leaders themselves.
But before I was just a math lead teacher. I've had a track record of getting really good academic results. So my title now, I'm transitioning to a new role here at the school, and I'll be the academic coordinator for the network of schools. I'll be heavy-handed in analyzing the data that we get back from all our assessments over the course of the school year and helping to break that down to teachers, principals, my academic team, and any other stakeholders at the school.
That's a game changer, and that's what we see. And as I led the incubation work for the Mind Trust, that's what I encourage leaders to do. How will you make sure that you know exactly what your school needs at different times?
I don't want to give myself the credit. I don't really deserve it. But my students, when assessment time comes, they show they know their stuff.
I think you can give yourself some credit.
Maybe a little.
Great video. Keith was just a pleasure to meet and to work with, and he just cares so much about his kids. Patrick, how does the innovation school model enhance accountability for schools and for teachers?
Yeah, I think the first thing is there's an agreement, and that agreement basically states, right, this contract is for a certain amount of time, and if at the end of that time you haven't shown that you are the school leader for this school, we're going to end this contract. And I think that's an honorable position to be in. I mean, you wouldn't have it any other way. You're choosing to basically state that I want to take over the school, or I want to essentially turn this school into an autonomous school, because if I do that, this school will be better for it, is the bargain here. Right. And so if I'm making that bargain, then what better way to put as collateral for that bargain than at the end of, in Indianapolis, at the end of 5 years, if we come visit this school and we look at its metrics and we interview people and we go through a whole process and this school is not good, then we're going to terminate our agreement. There's no better agreement than that. That's a fair shot.
That is a fair shot. And I think the district just took a step recently, didn't they? Didn't it?
They just took a step. One of our schools, they had deemed one of our innovation schools within the city, they deemed did not make adequate progress. They did not deem it a school that was worthy of staying open past its 5th year. And that's just the reality of where we are. But that is what you have put in place in return for the autonomy. Right? So we don't get to have this autonomy unless we're willing to then say, if the district says that this school isn't working, that it's got to go. And there's just, in my opinion, there is nothing better than that. And when we think about how this whole thing works and some of the different schools, you got the school that Lydia is at, you got the school that Greg is at, and then Nathan's at. I think this idea of sameness keeps coming up, like teachers being aligned and the district being aligned. In my opinion, the only thing we need to be aligned on is, are you running a good school or not? This whole idea of unity is actually not realistic. We need harmony. That's why we have different schools. We're going to be playing different notes. We're going to be doing different things. And at the end, it better sound good.
Well, I was very sorry to hear about that school's lack of success, but I have to tell you, I was overjoyed to hear that the district did not renew the contract, because what we hear from school choice opponents so much is that there's no accountability. And in places where we see charter schools, for example, not doing as well as they should be doing, we feel that maybe the authorizing isn't as strong. So I was glad to see that IPS was taking the contract terms very seriously and the metrics very seriously.
Well, and Tressa, in any ideology, position, or organization is essentially set up to protect itself. And so the fact that IPS took this step is saying that they're willing to go against that, what I consider human nature, to protect yourself at all costs. They're willing to go against that human nature and take the step and do what they said they were going to do with the contract to the public.
Right. So we see what happened in Indianapolis at a very granular level. I want to switch to Andrew real quick and hear more broadly from a national point of view. What role does accountability play in school choice? Or should I phrase it the other way around? What role does school choice play in accountability? And what do you see more broadly?
Well, I think in some ways, school choice is accountability and provides for real-time information that schools can see about parent satisfaction and demand. And it can create a great feedback loop for schools to see if parents are leaving and going somewhere else, to identify why that's happening and to make improvements. And what we see in places like Florida and to some extent Indiana is that schools are not competing as much as they are complementing each other. And teachers are working with teachers in other schools and saying, look, I have a student who's here and the student is not successful in this environment and it's just not a good fit, but I think they would be perfect in your school, and referring kids to schools that are better fits for them. So when we talk about accountability and we talk about competition as a result of school choice, I think it's often defined by folks as this fight to the death competition, when in reality, all of our communities have a variety of different parks, and we can go to the skate park, or we can go to the park where you canoe, or you can go to the park where you hike and bike. And nobody looks at that as a bad thing. They look at it as a good thing, because people are choosing to go to different environments to recreate. I want that for schools as well. And I want all schools to get better based on parents making decisions, teachers making decisions, and everybody having an accurate set of data from which to make their decisions.
Yes, I think that's right. And our founder, David Osborne, talked all the time about how differently children learn from one another. You would not take a child who sings and dances and is just overflowing with emotion and creativity and stick that child in a STEM school if that child wasn't STEM inclined. And so the one size fits all model, especially in this day and age, just can no longer be the norm. Nathan, I'm going to turn to you now. And actually, this question that I was going to ask you anyways matches a question from the audience. And it is basically, how do you set expectations for teacher accountability at Edison? How do you support teacher success? And how do you set expectations for a work-life balance? Which is a lot in one question. So feel free to—
3 questions.
I know. Free to break it up in small bites.
Setting expectations, we do that starting with the interview, talking about our coaching model. And we also follow that up with our evaluation process. And so we have a rubric that we make very clear to teachers, and half the rubric is observation and half the rubric is a set of data points. And I don't want to say we don't negotiate on the data points, in the sense that in the past, some teachers, there's all the extenuating circumstances, and sometimes we'll be like, oh, you're right, the kid's this, they came in low, so on and so forth. So we just want to make sure, as was shared in some videos, we hold our students and our teachers to super high expectations that are achievable. And so we just make those very clear, starting with the interview process. To support that, though, we have, again, a very rich coaching model that is a buffer between observation and evaluation. And so coaches are non-evaluative, and we use a book called Get Better Faster. I didn't author it, it's not a plug, it's what we use as far as leverage leadership, driven by data, get better faster. And we use this set of action steps with our teachers and just a very rigorous, frequent observation feedback, scripted coaching model to where our teachers look like 5 to 10 year veterans within 90 days. So we support them in their data. And then as far as work-life balance, we encourage people to go home. As you know, we also try to shorten the lesson planning process with lesson plan internalization. We don't ask for things to be rewritten, but simply annotated. And you know, we try to encourage people to use their time super wisely when planning. And anyway, we always offer, how can we help? What are some barriers? We have exit tickets in our staff meetings all the time. What are some barriers, areas of concern, areas of improvement? Please let us know. We're an open door. We want to make this great, but our student achievement is the end goal.
I'm going to do a short answer for Nathan, Andrew, and Patrick, because you guys sit at a little bit more global level. I've had a couple questions from the audience asking what are the recommendations for preventing teacher burnout, and I think that's fair since that was the title of this webinar, partially. Nathan?
I would say here we try to have very clear expectations of student culture and rigor in the classroom, so people know what to expect from administration and we know what to expect from the teacher, so people don't feel burnt out and they feel supported by systems and routines that are in place to support them.
Andrew, at the national level, do you see perhaps less teacher burnout in places where the teacher's mission is aligned to the school's mission, or I should say the teacher's vision of themselves as an educator is aligned to the school's mission?
I do, but I would say that let's just be realistic and that this year is the year of burnout for educators everywhere. And to say anything different would be completely disrespectful. I mean, this is the worst possible environment in terms of trying to navigate for educators. And my hat goes off to everybody who is continuing to work so hard for kids.
Thanks. And Patrick, what do you see in the innovation schools in Indianapolis with regard to teacher burnout? And
oh, go ahead. Was your last part?
Just with mitigation efforts.
Yeah, I think, you know, I agree with Andrew. This is just the worst. This year and last year are just the worst 2 years in education history for the workforce, for teachers, staffers, principals, whoever. It's just bad. I think the biggest thing is, I mean, you can't get away from the work. So I think, like, if you think about then what else can you do? I think that's the other thing. And I think alignment is the strongest thing that you could possibly do. I worked at a place 10 years where people said, like, I can't work here for one day, but it was a place where I loved to go into work every day. And I, you know, never could have gotten burnt out. But I think the other thing, if I'm being honest with myself, is you got to play hard. And I'm not sure I did enough of that. And sometimes I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't know if the school can provide that. Sure, there's like funds, right? There's capital to play hard. That's true. But I think you have to have a disposition around, I am worthy of playing hard. And I struggled with that when I was a teacher. I struggled with the piece of, like, I can go on this vacation. I can have a good time. I can enjoy my family all night instead of, like, thinking about work or thinking that I have to do something, because nobody was putting that pressure on me but myself. And I think internally we have to tell ourselves that we are worthy of taking that time. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I want to give my educators the last word today because this is their show. I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds. We're running over a little bit, but we started a little bit late. And this is just open mic for you to tell us what you need or what we missed or what we need to focus on. And we're going to start with ladies first. No, we're not going to start with ladies first. I'm going to give the lady the last word. Let's start with Nathan, and then we'll go to Greg and then to Lydia.
I was just getting ready to type a response to one of the questions in the chat about what advice do you all have for district leaders trying to prevent school burnout. And in this moment and in these circumstances, I think the opportunity to invest funds in extra resources in the school, such as human bodies, so that we aren't splitting classrooms and making classrooms larger. Like, I think that's a simple solution to make a teacher at least feel like they're still able to be within what they signed up for.
Greg?
I really appreciate what Patrick was saying at the end regarding teacher burnout. I think the most important thing is that aspect of playing hard and really putting your energy into your building and in the factors that create joy for you and creating that culture of joy within the building. I've been going so hard for our students in terms of joy, because the more that we have those expectations, the harder that we work. You have to match that energy in terms of what joy you're providing. Truly, J factor does become the X factor. But once you are at home and once you are recharging, you're really taking that space and developing an identity outside of the classroom as well for teachers. Yeah, I think that's just huge. And that's something that I'm learning to do as well.
Thank you so much. And Lydia, you had the last word in the video, so I'm going to give you the last word today from your classroom.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for opening up this space, and also for all the gentlemen acknowledging that it's not an easy time, definitely. But if these times are tough and uncertain for adults, just imagine how these times are for our kids. That's why we need to be here for them. Our students might not look like they're listening at times, but they always are. And they are going to learn directly from what you plan to teach, but also indirectly from your actions. They can pick up on your commitment, your positive attitude, and they notice all the little things that you do to show them how much they mean to you.
Great points all around. Well, I want to thank everyone on this panel. I crammed a lot into a very short amount of time, and everyone's time is so valuable, especially now. So I really, really thank you for participating. And to the audience who gave us an hour out of their busy day, thank you so much. This video will be available on YouTube on our website at www.progressivepolicy.org. Also, front and center on our team's homepage, or landing site, I should say, is the Reinventing America Schools Guide that I mentioned. If you're interested, please take a look. There's also an abbreviated version of David Osborne's book, Reinventing America's Schools. You can reach me through our website, and I'm happy to answer any questions. We had a couple in the chat that we didn't get to. Feel free to email me, and I will distribute those questions to our panelists and get you your answers. And my best wishes to all of you for a successful second semester. And Andrew, congratulations on a fabulous school choice week. I really mean it. Audience, you should go check out that 50 state roll call video. It's really great. And Patrick, thank you to you, and thank you to the Mind Trust for all that you do for us.
Thank you, guys.